Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. It is Sunday morning, and we are in one of the best places to be in Austin. So thank you all for spending your time with us. A lot of times, what we're going to talk about to kick the day off is health. All right, everybody's concerned about health because it's how we wake up every morning, how we go to bed, how we do everything. Often unseen, unthought of. But when people think about space health, a lot of times you think about people like this. People that are going to go to space or have gone to space, and how are they staying healthy? What I hope that this session gets kind of reframes your mind around is that space health is our health. The things that are done there are in order for us to learn how to do things better down here and for longevity and the things like that. One of the things that I want to make sure that you pay attention to, though, is that things that seem out of reach for us right now really are not, and they'll demonstrate it through the conversation. And so to my very left, good friend, Dr. Bobby Satcher, NASA astronaut, certified physician, a founder of a company called OrbitalMed, which you will hear about, and just probably one of the coolest astronauts on this side of anything. Nothing frazzles him. And then we've got Priya Abiram, an up-and-coming space professional who has been doing some amazing things. She is the operations research lead, the research director for Operation Period, and we're going to get into it. So with that, Bobby, let me start with you. At the highest level, what does space reveal about the human body and mind that regular medicine on Earth does not see as clearly?
Well, thanks, and thanks for the brief introduction. I would add that I'm a practicing physician, so I'm still current.
Did I miss that? You're practicing.
Yeah.
Active doctor.
No, it's okay. And
Say it
I'm
cool as a cucumber.
I'm actually a cancer doctor, so a cancer surgeon. So, and I just wanted to, put that in a contextualize, what I'm saying, because it's an evolving area, space medicine and how to take care of people in space. NASA knows a lot about how to do it, and they've been the ones in the past that have pioneered that. But we're really kind of at a inflection point, I would say, where there's going to be a lot more people traveling in space. And so because of that, we need to expand our understanding of how to take care of people. And it's more of a public health issue than a boutique health issue for people like myself who went through the NASA process. So NASA's did a great job and continues to do a great job of taking care of people in space. They are still sort of the people who have the most knowledge and the most knowledge of space health and how to maintain health in space. But that's going to change, and with commercial space flight coming online, it's going to be more open and available to the public. And it's going to be necessary because the approach has to change a little bit. You're going to have people with all different backgrounds and all different health concerns that are traveling in space, and that has to be managed appropriately.
So I want to take the time just for 1 second to kind of talk about something that it's an elephant in the room when you get into rooms where there are astronauts. And I use that term because an astronaut by definition is someone who has been to space. All right, but my context, I grew up around it, it's a profession. But if you think about what they represent right now in the discussion we're having, talk about a plumber. You got an apprentice all the way to someone who has complete mastery. Think about these astronauts as those with complete mastery, and the folks that you see on TV nowadays are the ones that are coming out of their apprenticeship. So when we talk about human performance, it's a little different on a suborbital than it is for an orbital. What other considerations do you all, and NASA has forced people to look at, but the commercial sector's not thinking about, like cognition, sleep, things like that?
Well, I think everybody's looking at that. I wouldn't say that they're not looking at it. It's just what's the plan for for dealing with it. Yeah, it's going to the moon and Mars and beyond. That presents a unique environment, just both physically and psychologically or psychiatrically, that has to be managed so that you have people performing at their appropriate levels in those circumstances. And even down to where if you're going to have people just on orbit and low Earth orbit, there are changes that occur in your body when you go into microgravity, and you're in a confined space, obviously. And so managing that and understanding what everybody needs is going to be the focus of a lot that's coming in the next few years with the private companies, since they're going to have a large presence in low Earth orbit. The biggest changes are, being in microgravity and what that does to the body, and how you have to manage that. It's everything from maintaining your muscle mass to how it changes, your digestive system, and your cardiovascular system, and making sure that you manage those things.
You used the word everybody in the middle of that. So this is no longer niche medicine, right? And so Priya, you're studying this. This is what you're doing. You're looking, you're not a doctor, but you're looking at human performance through a scientific lens. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and where the focus is.
Thank you, Che, and thanks for having me here. My background is in life support engineering and design engineering. So did my undergrad and master's at Cornell University, and I've had the opportunity to work across a couple space companies, designing and contributing to building rockets, satellites, sending them to the International Space Station. Had the opportunity to work at NASA, Blue Origin, Boeing, VAST, Inversion Space. My most recent endeavor and my most recent experiences have been around life support engineering. I worked on astronaut life support systems at VAST, who's building the first private space station out of Long Beach, and my responsibility was to work on the centrifugal phase separator system, which is what converts and purifies urine into water aboard the private space station. And a lot of the work that my team was looking at was like around oxygen filtration, carbon dioxide scrubbers, everything that keeps humans alive in space. And I very distinctively remember during my first week of working, an engineer came up to me and said, by the way, the exit velocity of urine is different in men than it is in women. So it's actually a little bit messier and a bit harder for women to be able to pee comfortably in space. And it takes a little bit longer, and there is a bit of a mess. And so I designed this really cool funnel as a side project that can be a different interface for women to pee more comfortably compared to the standard funnels that they use on the International Space Station, or that we use for men. And my initial thought was, why is this a side project? Like, why is this not a part of the engineering standards and protocols? And that's where I started looking deeper into the issues that come around. What do we build as engineers that determine who gets to go to space? And when we build for one default human, we don't build, a settlement or a colony, we build a filter. We determine who has the access to go to space by determining and what engineering requirements we think about when we're building a lot of these systems. And so last year, I joined Operation Period with my co-researcher, and Operation Period has been around for the past 11 years. Manju, my co-researcher, started it after an especially painful period. Over the past 11 years, we have distributed over 300,000 menstrual products, but also improved health education, research, and media, and training the youth around what a safe, healthy period looks like around the world. And what my contribution to this, I joined the Redshift Lab, which is the research division, which is what I lead. And we're building the first robotic uterus on Earth and in space. Menstrual health and women's health research is decades behind every other field of medicine. It wasn't until 2023 that real menstrual blood was used in menstrual health research. They were using red dye and water before that. At that point, why do we need the red dye? It's just water. And 800 million people menstruate around the globe, and 500 million people don't have access to the product, sanitation, or the education that they need to have a safe and healthy period. And so this robotic uterus is the first dynamic uterine model, both on Earth, and we have the opportunity to take it on an upcoming space flight. More details under NDA, but very exciting stuff that we're doing with Operation Period.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just I was thinking about something that you said about this filter of who has the opportunity to go into space, and how health, what role health has played in that, which I think it was in the past, yes, you had to pass every test, physical test, and basically it was just not something be shown that they had decided was a criteria that excluded you. And it's just because the opportunity to go into space was so small. It was only, NASA is just picking a few people every 4 years or so. And so they had this luxury, I would say, of a very refined filter, making sure that there was nothing health-wise that they could find with the technology of the day. We could find more nowadays. I work with cancer patients, and the the instruments of diagnosis have grown in leaps and bounds a lot because of the research done in space. But just with what they could detect, you had to be basically perfect. But we all know that there are things that you can't detect, and but it was just used as a filter that way. In the future, and where we're transitioning to is that filter being gone. And what you're doing is, I think, part of that. But it's that filter is going to be removed, and so it's more of a philosophy no longer of exclusion but inclusion in terms of providing this opportunity, and a philosophy of we have to manage that in a reasonable way so that we don't have surprise events like, many of you knew about this recent thing where we had to bring a crew of astronauts back because of a cardiovascular event. And, could that be detected before we go? I don't know. We still, maybe not. But, it's costly, obviously, if something like that happens. So what we need to if we have to bring them back, that is, the other approach is building the infrastructure so that we can actually deal with that in space. And so I think all of that is on the table and being talked about.
So the next thing I say, I wish I didn't have to say it, but this is where we are, and I will. For the men in the room, I'm pleased to see none of you squeamed as we talked about menstruation and the like, because we shouldn't, and we have to. Let's talk about the practical nature of what you're studying and the cancer that you're studying. These are things, put it in practical terms for people. Why is it important that we understand the effects of microgravity on menstruation, or what microgravity and cancer research can do for people on Earth? Why is it important?
Yeah, definitely. We did a very extensive literature review, scouring a lot of NASA technical documents and information out in the world. And there have been a lot of reports stating that a lot of female astronauts that go to space for longer durations have to take an oral contraceptive to suppress their period. That oral contraceptive is linked with an increased risk of thrombosis. Recent NASA decadals have also mentioned that long-term effects of menstruation and long-term effects of suppression have not been studied in detail. Usually, even on Earth, oral contraceptives increase risks of all sorts of side effects and conditions and cardiovascular risks, strokes, and all sorts of amazing, beautiful things that can happen to our body. And so it's important to advance this research both on Earth and in space. And that's another aspect of spaceflight that is important, is we're building technology that's dual use. On Earth, we want to be able to license this robotic uterus out to medical centers, clinics, OBGYNs, for clinical testing, for testing all sorts of conditions such as endometriosis, PCOS, all sorts of different vaginal cancers, any other conditions that come up. There's a lot of research being done in biomarkers from menstrual blood and what that can tell you about what's happening in your body. We also want to be able to use this technology for product testing and standardization. Right now, we're in conversation with companies like P&G and Walmart, and we hear that the way pads and tampons are tested are with an eyedropper and with water, with drops of water with an eyedropper. That's not a sustainable way of building pads and tampons, and there's no regulation around regulation or laws around transparency and what products and chemicals they're using to make these products with, and those chemicals are what we're putting inside our body. And so we are also aiming to help with product testing and product standardization. Another aspect is equally important is patient advocacy and just education. Like when you go to the dentist office, you see models of teeth everywhere, and dentist tells you, oh, this is the tooth that has a cavity, and you know exactly what's going on, you know exactly what the problem is. But when you're working with menstrual health or your uterus, you know, there are all these big complicated words thrown around, and a lot of women don't even have an understanding of what's happening inside their body, what a uterus looks like, what are the different layers of the uterus, how does your menstrual cycle look like, especially not only younger women, but women of all age. And so having a robotic uterus in gynecologist offices, in these clinical medical spaces, allows us to train doctors with IUD insertions better, and also allows patients to have a better understanding of this is what's going on inside your body and this is how we need to fix it.
Bobby, she mentioned the decadals in the middle of that. So as you talk about the decadal studies, you know, NASA does those, and how do those play in, and how are cancer research and microgravity affecting?
Well, cancer has is being studied a lot more now, and what that risk is. You got to talk about where you're going to be exactly, because not all places in space are the same. Obviously, there's it depends on where you are. How many people here might want to go to the moon? Let's see a show of hands. How many people want to go to Mars? Fewer hands. All right. Well, there's different risks. You know, in space, around close to the Earth, you're protected from the radiation from the sun, the particulate radiation, because of the Earth's magnetic field. So it gives you less of exposure to radiation that puts you at risk for developing cancer. When you're on the moon, yeah, you're still pretty much protected. But once you leave there and you're going to Mars, then it's a real problem, because we don't know if our technology now is good enough. We're in the process of developing that technology, but the first people that go are going to be a little bit of an experiment. We know that you know, astronauts who have been in orbit around the Earth and have gone to the moon don't have an increased risk that we can detect of cancer, but it's a small number. You know, it's
race against Russia.
it's not a large number of you know, of a data set, and for cancer, you tend to need, you know, thousands and thousands, not hundreds. And so nothing detected, but that doesn't say that there's nothing, right? So, but yeah, when we go to Mars, that's a whole different enchilada, as the saying goes. And yeah,
It's a lot. And so what we were talking about in this first portion of the conversation was around the research around it. And that's the stuff that fascinates the people that, you know, are in research labs and the like. But more importantly, you all are here to kind of learn about why is it relevant to you here and now. So as we transition from the research into the practice, my first question, Bobby, is for you. OrbitalMed, new company you founded. It's built around continuity of care during and after flight, as well as research and development. Why is that model needed right now?
yeah, it's needed because as you have people who are traveling, you want to make sure that you reduce whatever risk you have in terms of whatever you're going to do. And it's known. We've flown a lot of people, and I say NASA and the other space agencies, who actually have medical problems, and they've been managed. So those methods are known, and it just has to be, that needs to be the approach in terms of proactively managing those. And that's what OrbitalMed will do, so that you can go reduce any risk of any untoward event, and also enjoy the experience. There's, you know, early term adjustments when you go into microgravity in space that, you know, you were alluding to. I mean, when I went, it's like it took me 2 days to do a number 2, right? 2 days. And it's because your guts basically just say, what the heck is going on? You know, what happened to that gravity cue to tell me which direction to send this stuff? And, you know, it takes a little while, you know, and the first time you do it is you know, it's quite an effort, and everybody tells you that. The first time you do it, it's like, oh my goodness, you know, you do it and you feel like, hallelujah, I'm born again, you know, it's Sunday. So anyway, And then, you go and you're peeing like a racehorse the first, couple days because you have these huge fluid shifts in your body, where the fluid in your lower extremity kind of floats up into your bloodstream. Your body interprets that as you got too much fluid on board, and you do the normal thing. You start peeing. So you're peeing like a racehorse. It takes a couple days, but in the process, you're reducing the amount of fluid in your body. All of this means that you got to replace that before you come back, because you get back on the ground and you're essentially dehydrated and orthostatic if you want to really test it out. So these are short-term changes that everybody goes through, and OrbitalMed, of course, will try to mitigate these things. There's ways you can mitigate it. Another big thing is space nausea or space sickness, and that affects 2/3 of people that go. And it doesn't matter what your background is. So, like Che here is, fighter pilot, test pilot, all this. And it doesn't matter if you've done that with all this crazy G maneuvers and everything. He's no different than me, who I've never flown and stuff like that, and I can't tolerate that here on the ground. But we're equal when we go in space. And my tolerance for that is the same as yours, because it just has something to do with the lack of gravity in the way that it scrambles your brain, and your brain basically trying to make sense of it. And so 2/3 of people, that translates into, I feel nauseous. Okay, so but there's ways that you can that we've learned that you can kind of predict that you're more at risk for that, and so that should be forward managed.
You mentioned a few things in there that really is important, and why space health puts things into perspective. One, you mentioned going to the bathroom, and then two, you mentioned the physiology. One of the things that's a fact of life is that crews are going to become more diverse. And I said yesterday, we're in Texas, so I'm going to not be careful when I talk about this. Wow, it's a bad joke. Didn't land at all. The point of it is, space is going to be it represents humanity, and so there's all these different considerations. So when future crews are not, middle-aged white test pilot males, which we haven't had for a long time, and they're becoming more diverse, medical care, ambulatory care, routine maintenance, all of those things are not the same as they were. I won't bring up the old anecdote about Sally Ride's trials and tribulations. You guys want to ask about that? It's kind of really comical today and sad at the same time, but it shows a vast misunderstanding. But as we get into this future, we're going to rely more on technology. We're going to rely more on ambulatory things and basic knowledge that individuals have. I was going to show a clip, so let me just ask a question. Who's seen the movie Prometheus? Okay. Yeah, don't be shy. It's a great movie.
I haven't seen it.
So you need to watch it, because I love certain space movies, but in this particular case, what's relevant to right now, somewhere in the middle of the movie, one of the main protagonists goes and starts to do something on a machine that is an all-encompassing medical machine. If we had that today anywhere, like if they'd have had it, if Crew 11 had it, we wouldn't have had to maybe do an emergency evacuation. So these are things that we really need to consider, and this is where you all start to come into play, because not everybody in here is ever going to be an astronaut or a mission commander or anything along those lines, but you will make technology that can be translated that way. So let me get back to here, and this is for both of you. What happens when a hospital is nowhere nearby? What do you do, and what has to change in how we think about routine health and ambulatory care?
That's a great question, Jay. And I think there's a lot of technology being built right now, a lot of frontier tech, deep tech around what does care look like in space for all sorts of situations. I've been working on a lot of analog missions, microgravity missions, underwater training, as well as Mars analog missions on top of volcanoes since I was 17 years old. And one of the research that I got to fly on a parabolic flight in partnership with a couple Ph.D. students from University of Toronto was, how do we 3D print stem cells and skin in space? So we were floating, and then we had a handheld 3D printing gun, and we would have these little cartilages, and we would 3D print cells, like cells that we could use to heal astronaut wounds in space, because what's going to happen when someone burns themselves? What's going to happen when people hurt themselves, when people are bleeding? What's going to probably take longer for the skin to come back and grow and all of that. So what do we do to help protect? And so with advancements in 3D printing on Earth and also taking that to space and the ideas of in-space manufacturing and using resources in space to take care, there's a lot of also the idea of like recycling within space. And I know it sounds gross, but yes, it is pretty cool that we get to turn urine into water. And there's also a lot of studies around what benefits can we get from extracting nutrients out of feces or menstrual blood in space. Because when we're on a way to Mars, your feces, menstrual blood, and urine is your diamond and gold. That's your biggest luxury, to bring your nutrients back into your body. And so that it's pretty cool to see the ways of innovation that pushes to what limits humans can survive in, and then bringing that back to Earth. There were advancements in chemotherapy from the Apollo mission and stuff like that. What we're doing at Operation Period with the robotic uterus is that we have the opportunity to fly it in space and look at light flow, nominal flow, and heavy flow of menstruation. So we're looking at heavy menstrual bleeding, which affects 20% of American menstruators and 47% of sub-Saharan and African menstruators. And we're looking at how does menstrual blood flow in the first place without gravity? Is there any retrograde flow? What direction is the period blood moving in? How does it interact with the skin underneath and around? How does it interact with pads and tampons? Are these different products less efficient or more efficient in space than on Earth? And how many do we need? Like Shay alluded to, there's like the famous quote of when Sally Ride was asked if 100 tampons were enough for a 5-day mission in space. And we've come away from then, but we still have a long way to go. And that's what we're working on with Operation Period and our robotic uterus. And right now with developing this technology, we are looking for support. We've been fundraising for the development of the design and the space flight and everything from that end. And we've also been advancing what menstrual health looks like to diversify what future crews get to go.
So this doesn't apply to this group because everybody's engaged and interested, but the average person, they're going to say, this sounds great. All right, that's fine. You guys are doing a lot of research. What does it mean to me? Why is this stuff relevant for just average people?
Well, I wanted to kind of follow on what Priya was talking about. With when you're in these environments, it's the resources you need are expertise, and then you need material resources and infrastructure. And I've been in some austere environments, under-resourced countries, for instance, with medical missions doing surgeries out in the middle of nowhere. And I've been involved with other efforts looking at, the other end of the spectrum where you have infrastructure, but you don't have the expertise. What do I mean exactly? So, when you're doing the surgery out in some under-resourced area, you don't have all of the accoutrements and fancy things that we have here, and how do you adapt to that? So they are fortunately, having the expertise and being able to MacGyver things out of and repurpose things, and that's one of the strategies that's used. And then another study that occurred, and this happened in Antarctica, where you had somebody who had needed an orthopedics procedure, a knee scope, and they didn't have a doctor there. They did have equipment there to actually pull this off, so they patched in the doctors using sort of telemedicine, talked them through a spinal anesthetic, and talked them through a knee scope. And so everybody survived, so it worked. And so we're having technology like that come online. With robotics, that's, another method which can be used. There's been transatlantic robotic surgery, believe it or not. And it was a few years ago, but they did a cholecystectomy with the patient in France. And
France.
and the surgeon in New York that actually was operating the robot. And again, it worked. So, these are all methods which will apply to medical care in space, in which, in the process of doing that, we'll refine the approaches better, the strategies, the technologies better, and that benefits everybody here so that we can democratize medical care here on the home planet.
Yeah.
I wanted to add a little bit to that and also go back to why is all of this important to Earth. A lot of people have like a hard time believing why are we spending billions of dollars going to space when there are like a million problems here on Earth. And I think the most important thing to realize there is the problems that we're solving in space is we're solving for food, water, shelter, transportation, energy. And those are the same problems that exist here on Earth. It's hunger, it's water, it's shelter, it's transportation, and the energy crisis. And so space gives us a platform to study all these problems and build technology and solutions in very extreme conditions. And that building efficient technologies, when you're building for very extreme conditions, efficiency is the most important thing. How can you get something that is small, that weighs less, that is cost effective, and gets the job done? And that efficiency in space drives innovation on Earth, and that innovation drives sustainability for a lot of the problems that we're facing in all these different buckets of problems that have already been existing for billions of years, here on Earth that we've never been able to solve or get a solution to. Space gives us a new platform and a new lens to view all those different problems and bring back new solutions and different solutions to Earth.
So before we get to my favorite part of these things, which is you all's questions, we're going to do a really quick lightning round. So super quick answer, and then we're going to hand it over to you all. So start thinking about questions you have. Bobby, what is one myth about human spaceflight you want this audience to let go of?
You don't have to be in perfect health.
Okay. Priya, what is one capability in space health we need sooner than most people realize?
We need the ability we need technologies that hold every single person in space.
Okay. And then for both of you, what is one thing this room can do as researchers, investors, storytellers, clinicians, educators, citizens to help move this field forward?
Just continue to be big fans of space and space exploration and be vocal about it.
Space is for everyone. It's not only for people who are rocket scientists dressed in white lab coats that look like Albert Einstein. One of my closest friends is a Fashion Institute major and is at NASA building and working on putting together spacesuits. So space is for everyone.
Okay. So, all right, we got hands. Sir.
Thank you. Interested in a reacclimation process once you return back on Earth. What does that look like? What type of medical care is needed once astronauts return to Earth? Thank you.
Yeah, the big thing is your musculoskeletal and cardiovascular health, and then your body's fluid management. Those are probably the big buckets. And then the neurovestibular reacclimation probably takes the longest. So the cardiovascular and musculoskeletal stuff we manage now just by exercising in space. And that helps to kind of mitigate that. So it usually takes maybe 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks for you to recover. And the neurovestibular stuff takes longer. It's you get the sensation when you remove certain cues, like when it's completely dark in a room, still feeling like you're floating and all this. And that usually takes 4 to 6 weeks, something like that, to completely abate. So yeah, it starts when you just get ready to deorbit. You have to fluid load so that you get all that fluid back into your body. And but your body, fortunately, once you get back on the ground, your muscles and everything start to reacclimate, and that's why that happens faster. The brain is trickier, though.
And I forgot, rules of the road, state your name, where you're from, then your question. And who in the back there had a hand up? Yeah, you're coming. Yeah, right there. Yep, him. Her. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Hi, Sarah Mitran. I live here in Austin. So we know that which was the astronaut that actually had the emergency, which was the reason why the mission terminated. Obviously, we don't know who. I haven't seen if they've decided to say what was the problem.
Oh, it's Mike Fink. He came out with a statement. He
Okay.
came out with a statement.
Yeah, I saw the original statement, but it didn't say what was the problem.
Oh, right. Yeah, no.
Right.
He just let it known that it was him.
Right. Yeah. So, so obviously, the importance of actually getting information of all of the astronauts, whether they're private, commercial, international, national, whatever, is very important. Is there a goal, or is there a database to be implemented where all of the commercial space stations actually are feeding into it so that it can provide feedback into researchers? And the other question, obviously, you talked about robotic surgery. We know that there's 119 things that could go wrong in space in the human body, right? And all primes are actually working separately. And I have been trying to plant seeds, for the companies to develop a consortium of some sort so that they can collaborate. But so far, I've only heard that they're sharing information with each other. But there's I completely understand everybody would want to have be the one that solves a problem. But I think the more brains together, the better.
Okay, so your question was?
Database.
Got it.
To everybody feed into
Perfect.
data, and the other one is.
Got it. So you want to talk about Trish and others?
Trish is at Baylor is the one database that was established for that. It has relationships with companies, not all of them, and so something that can be built upon. Just collecting medical information from commercial space flyers. Obviously, to optimize all of this and just a vision for the future is obviously can the information from NASA astronauts and other government space agencies be a part of this. And I think we got to think about how that might work, because that's how we optimize it and get it to where it needs to be. And then there was another question
No.
about
Just hold on 1 second. Yeah, you had a second question. What was it? Oh.
Yeah. Your philosophy is spot on. Big problems require lots of brains, not just one or two. And that's, if you look at science in general, that's the philosophy now, is collaboration. This is a big problem that's bigger than any one company, and so it's gonna need collaboration and all the best minds at the table to deal with it optimally, and that will benefit all the companies. So we're in this process of evolving. I think we'll get there. I'm optimistic about it. I think we're going to get there, but we're really at the front end of it.
So for those who don't know, TRISH is the Translational Research Institute for Space Health. It's at the Baylor College of Medicine website. We'll tell you a lot more about it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mike, please. 2 questions. Okay. Testing.
What's your name?
Lizzie. My name is Lizzie.
Okay.
One serious question and one funny question.
Go for it.
Serious first. You talked about technology and you said something about online. Well, I'm very keenly aware that NASA and ESA, European Space Agency astronauts, have to take college courses and masters and on certain fields. First of all, have you ever heard of online college, and is finishing your degree online for to become an astronaut? Is that possible, or does space agency say it has to be on campus? Can you finish your degrees online? That's the serious question. And as for the second and the funny question, you also talked about pee and feces. If you ever talk to kids and tell them about pee and that you drink pee, do you get a lot of ew, gross from the kids.
Thank you, Lizzie. So on the first question, Priya, you might be the one to talk about the training piece of it and online, because you've gone through a certain amount of training already, and some of that's been in person and some of it's probably been facilitated via hybrid approach. IAS as an example. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the question was more so related to like the college degree itself. I know that to be a NASA astronaut, at the website it says that you need a master's degree in a STEM field. I don't know, Bob, if you have more information on whether that can be online.
About the degree itself, it was about on finishing the degrees online, online college. Sure.
Yeah, sure. Not too familiar with that aspect. I don't know, Bobby, do you have any more information there?
I don't think it's specified how you get it. I think it's just that you have to have a degree.
So, Lizzie, you can go to MIT. They've got courses in space leadership. You can also go to Carnegie Mellon, have courses on space leadership. There are a lot of online courses, and IAAS is the third one. They actually have a master's degree in space studies. IAAS. IIAS. 1A. Two A's, correct. And then on the P question, and I think Bobby can answer that one probably much better than anybody.
Yeah, the psychology is there from a very young age about, drinking pee is how, and it's there with astronauts too, professional astronauts. It is a little bit of a mental barrier that everybody has to get over. But you do, and
If you talk to kids about that, do you get a lot of ew, gross from kids?
you get a lot from kids. You get a lot from everybody. And the other interesting thing is, we have to wear these affectionately known as space diapers when you're doing spacewalks, and so. It's having to pee into that when you're doing a spacewalk is a mental barrier also, just because from when you were a kid you were taught you don't pee in the bed, you don't pee in your pants, so you have to kind of tell yourself, hey, this is okay, let me just go for it.
Right. Any other questions from? Yes. Now we do need the mic. We're recording it, so thanks.
A couple things. First of all,
Just one question. Just ask a question.
okay.
Thank you.
How do y'all feel about working for NASA? How do you feel about space programs like from SpaceX or Blue Origin? Do you support it? Because you said support space all over. How do you feel about that? And then the other one was: is it safe to say robotics are the future in space as well? So solely robotics, taking off in a rocket or in a capsule and doing everything, and no humans on board whatsoever.
Thanks for the question. One of you want to tackle that?
Yeah, sure. I can start with the second question. In terms of solely robots taking off and doing things, we've already done that. We've had the Perseverance mission, the Curiosity mission. We've sent rovers to space. Rovers are robots. I think the future of space is very much using robots and humans together to get stuff done. Humans bring capabilities and intuition that robots can't bring, and robots make our lives easier. So it's all about how can we build technology so that our performance is boosted and we can do the best. We can perform to the best of our ability with artificial intelligence and technology. The first question was about commercial spaceflight. I am a big supporter of commercial spaceflight. I'm sure I could speak for Bobby to say the same. That's the future of where space is going. We have people think that aerospace or space is restricted to, NASA, Blue Origin, SpaceX, but there are over 10,000 companies just in the US, a whole coast of 100 startups right off the coast of El Segundo in California. And there's a lot going on in terms of what the future looks like with creating drugs, creating fiber optic cables, mining asteroids, and everything that comes back and benefits life on Earth.
Yeah. You've seen a few things blow up then. But okay. And I think people don't understand just how vast space is and how big of a problem this is. Commercial spaceflight is a necessary part of the solution so that like government agencies, et cetera, can focus on going beyond and stretching the limits. The number of estimated planets out there is close to Avogadro's number, if you remember that from chemistry, 10 to the 23rd. That's just some ridiculously incredible number much more money than Elon Musk has, right? And it's we haven't been to another planet yet. We haven't even started. So we gotta pool resources and get everybody on this thing.
So I will break character as a moderator, just a little bit more enlightenment. So NASA has always embraced the private space companies. I shouldn't say it always. Let me rephrase that. From a certain time, NASA has embraced the private space companies. And what doesn't get put out in the press is NASA is highly responsible for the success of the private space companies. It behooves NASA for them to be successful to carry the mission forward. We have time for one more question, and then we're going to do one thing at the end. That's you, sir. Right in front, yes, sir.
Corey Harris, Richmond, Virginia. In the context of the travel, and because we've got physicians here as well as astronauts, I'm curious if any of or all of you could speak to where does the technology either stand or is in progress as it relates to the human and robot portion that you answered before, but humans being able to be in space for longer periods of time to travel distances. So I'm thinking of the things you see in science fiction around sort of suspended animation and just humans being able to have cryo sleep, or is there any real science or research behind some version of that in real life?
I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of research around how do we build autonomous houses that deploy by themselves on the moon to sustain a present. There's a lot of research around how can we get to Mars faster with nuclear engineering and nuclear technology, bringing down our time from 2.5 years for one way to 3 months one way with nuclear engineering. There's a lot around our goal, our next big goal with the Artemis mission is obviously to go there and build a permanent presence on the moon. And what that means is to have people on the moon at all times and have the moon as a pit stop for the next step, which is to go to Mars. And building a lot of that requires houses, requires nutrition, requires a very sustainable way of taking things back and forth from the moon and Earth. And it's not only about going to the moon, it's also bringing that back to Earth. There's a lot of resources on the moon, such as helium-3, that is very scarce here on Earth that can help with all sorts of medical and nuclear innovation. Lunar regolith is also extremely powerful in terms of what you can build with it. Lunar regolith can make everything from really strong carbon fibers to really thin pieces of thread. And having all these really cool material properties and the lack of gravity allows you to build a whole new variety of drugs, medicine, materials that can all be brought back to Earth and do better things here and go back and stay there for longer. So,
yeah, it's a pretty curious relationship between Hollywood and reality because they get a lot of this stuff right for some reason. And I'm not sure if they're a fly on the wall or what.
I think that's Andy Weir, just Andy Weir.
Yeah. But research around on the medical side, artificial gravity, like what was that, 2001 or 2010?
2001 Space Odyssey, 2010 the follow-on.
And then cryostasis. We use that now actually in the hospitals, and we induce comas and. So that's a reality, and whether or not that can be used in space, there's a lot of research looking at that now.
So before we wrap, I have adopted a habit with these things. Does anybody know who James Lipton is? Has anybody seen the Actors Studio? Yeah. So we're gonna do that thing at the end there. I can give all the credit where credit's due, but we're just gonna get into it. For both of you, one-word answers are the best, but if you need a couple more words, then go for it. But one word's what we're going for. What's your favorite word?
incredible.
Yes?
What's your least favorite word?
No?
I can't think of one right now.
We'll come back to that one. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Swimming.
Oh, swimming.
Nature.
What turns you off? I told you Bobby's cool. Nothing turns him off. So
Illogical conflict.
My homework.
only 2 more months left, right? Yeah. What's your favorite curse word?
I go with Lil Jon. Damn.
took the easier one.
Took the easy one.
Can I copy
Go
that?
for it. No, you got to get your favorite curse word. We'll bleep it for your mother.
I'll say shit because I work with it.
Okay, there you go. What sound or noise do you love?
Music?
Birds.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Music?
All right, we'll skip. All right, here's the best one. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, this one's easy. Star Wars.
Star Trek.
And you,
Star Trek.
okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt? Not gonna say musician?
Venture capital.
Bernard will be proud.
I've had a passion for fashion, so I would say modeling.
Okay. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome.
I'm going to use that. Welcome.
All right. So with that, I want you guys to help me thank Priya and Dr. Bobby Satcher. And this is for an invitation for you all. Operation Period can be found, researched where?
Online, just operationperiod.com.
And OrbitalMed?
OrbitalMed.com.
And you can go to interastra.space, or more specifically, interastra.institute or bolden.group. As for all of you all, that invitation is there. Don't just admire these people. A, they're going to be here for a little bit. Come talk to them a little bit. Bobby's got to leave quickly, so come talk to them. Find out where you can do your part and take their inspiration. If something you heard today moves you, act on it. Act on it. With that, CZ Mastro, thank you so much for doing this. Juice, thank you so much for putting it on. And most importantly, thank you all very much.